Welcome, hello. You're listening to the Line Sports Talk podcast. It is Thanksgiving Eve. I guess that makes it Wednesday, the 23rd of November, 2016. We're ready to break down the fantasy lineup builder. Hopefully we can all shoot our wad and win a bunch of big money. Maybe make something for Christmas. Good luck and listen up. All right, how about that? And we're back, the Line Sports Talk podcast. Ready to do a fantasy builder, joined by my buddy here the night before Turkey Day, Harbor Mike. Harbor Mike, say hi to our fans.
What's going on, everyone? Happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving to you, my brother. This is time to shine here for the fantasy junkies out there. I think that if you are a daily fantasy player and you focus on this and you try your hardest, this is the day. Tomorrow, Thursday. 3 matchups. This is your time to shoot your wad, man. Take your bankroll and just shoot it. You don't get the opportunity to play 3 games like this all that often. This is playoff weekend. It tends to be in the NFL for me when I've won my best games was during playoff time when you had 3 or 4 games to choose from. And here we go. This is it. This is the one weekend in the middle of the season you get a shot to do it. So let's not pump the brakes anymore, man. Let's get loose. Mike, get it started, buddy.
Oh, man, let's see. We have a challenge, even though I agree with everything that you just said about these are the times when you have the best opportunity. But at the same time, these choices are difficult because there's some studs on all the teams. So depending on whether or not you're doing the Thursday only, which is the all 3 games, or the late Thursday, which is obviously the 2 games that omits the Minnesota and Detroit game that's at 12:30, it's going to really affect your lineup. So we're going to break some things down here, and so we're assuming let's play the all 3 games this week.
Okay.
I like Sam Bradford, given everything. Now, as we get along, we'll address some things about different positions, but assuming everyone that we're going to talk about today is healthy enough to play, then first off, my number one choice on the Thursday all day, all 3 games, would be Sam Bradford. I like just the overall matchup. I think they're going to redeem themselves from that butt whipping that they took from Detroit.
Sure.
Detroit is giving up the 5th most points to the quarterback position in FanDuel scoring, so I'm sure
in all-around NFL scoring, Detroit's pass defense sucks.
And they put together a decent game. Now, mind you, I'm not predicting Sam Bradford gets 25 points. If he does, good. But I'm anticipating a slower pace in the Pittsburgh-Indy game based upon their having to start Scott Tolson. So I'm hoping, I'm betting that we don't get a huge game from Big Ben because I'm hoping we're going to see kind of similar what we saw last week in the Cleveland game, where Le'Veon Bell's going to dominate, and they're going to double team maybe Brown, even still he'll get some points. The point being, overall, there's not going to be much passing offense, or we hope it's comparable to the other games.
Let me jump in there for you for a second, too. To the listener who's putting these together, with the 3 games, you've got Minnesota at Detroit with the early game, Washington, Dallas, and then the late game is Pittsburgh and Indianapolis. And what we're suggesting, what we're going to do here for about the next 5 to 8 minutes, is break down a fantasy team based on those 3 games to choose from. Once we do that breakdown and move on, then we'll do something with just the 2 afternoon, the 4:30 and the 8:30 games. But for right now, just because we're plugging Sam Bradford in does not mean that Sam Bradford is the ultimate choice. The idea of this entire exercise and what we're going to go over with a 3-game selection is trying to build stacks with each valuable player and then creating value with every undervalued player that will make room everywhere else. Boy, I hope that made sense. It does to me. But as we do it,
you can break it down like this. It's pretty simple. Each position, because obviously we have 3 games, so we have 2 quarterbacks. That means we guaranteed those 6 guys, one of those is going to be the moneymaker. And if we can, if they're all similar, it's going to be a really good for us.
Yeah,
we don't want
clear.
points from Big Ben because Sam Bradford's not going to match that. But I guarantee you, if you do start Big Ben, you're not going to be able to put together the complete team of studs. You're going to have to keep your fingers crossed on a few positions.
Sure, and that's the better way to explain it, is what we're ultimately doing with a Sam Bradford-like selection is we're making a price sacrifice to open up when you'll see as this all unfolds, there's a lot of other players out there that are high priced. You're choosing less to choose from, value raises. This is supply and demand here. So let's go. So we got Bradford in a bad matchup for the Lions, presumably. So Bradford would be your number one in this setup. Follow on to the running back.
I think, and I pretty much have him in every lineup, regardless of whether it's the all day, all 3 games, or the late Thursday with just the 2. I like Le'Veon Bell for sure.
Yeah, the running back positions this week are going to be pretty easy to decide on.
Yeah, and they are because of the cost value in there too. There's no hard choices to make given the different lineups that we're going to put. So Le'Veon Bell, I mean, we don't even need to speak on the matchup versus Indianapolis, and given he's back, one of the best running backs, if not arguably the best running back in the NFL. So given that, I really like him. I think that game is going to, most of the offense is going to go through him because, again, they're not as dynamic through the air. They have a lot of injuries and a lot of uncertainty beyond Antonio Brown. So that just ups the ante for me as well.
Yeah, and with this whole weekend, too, for the sake of speeding it along, we don't need too many explanations on who these guys, where they are and where they come from. We don't need to prove the point. We just really have to select who we need and where we're going to plug them in, and let's go on to, so now we're at Bell and Bradford.
Yeah, in my second spot for the cost, I like Frank Gore, and it's for basically everything I just said about Bell. The matchup is good. With Tolson being the starter, you're going to definitely see more of the offense go through Gore. I really don't, care for any of their wide receivers just because of the unpredictability, so that makes me that much more of a go on Gore. And he's $6,500. He's so much cheaper than Zeke. I'm not telling you to pass up Zeke. I'm just telling you, given the combo we're trying to create, Gore fits for me.
Let me just ask you something here about Frank Gore, and this is where my concern is. I certainly recognize the value at $6,500, as well as a guy like Frank Gore, who is a workhorse, even though he's like 64 years old. Still shows up and does it every week. The one thing that the caveat for me is that, yes, Pittsburgh is going to play a little bit of a different defense with Tolzien back there. They're going to probably stack the front side of this line. The good news about that is Pittsburgh hasn't stopped anybody on the ground all year.
No, they've given up 10 rushing touchdowns, so I'm giving that consideration. I think maybe he doesn't get it done on the ground. Maybe he does it with screen passes.
I think so, too.
Probably more. I could see him catching 7 or 8 passes and getting 60 yards and a touchdown through the air because of Tolson. So
have you given any thought to the other running backs there in Indianapolis? You want to talk about real cheap, or maybe we don't have to?
I would avoid it. I mean, I know Turbin, I think
he's a touchdown fast thief.
Yeah, I think we're fine with Frank Gore.
I think he has the biggest biceps of any running back in the NFL. I think so, yeah. I think that there has actually been some discussion about how big this guy is. They're like Michael Pittman, if that's even a thing. But, yeah, but not important. So, sliding on along, we like the Frank Gore selection. So far, this is the Bradford play with Bradford, Bell, and Gore.
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Then wide receiver, again, we're now going back to who's the biggest stud, who has the most upside all the time. It's Antonio Brown. So that's who I like. Now it's changed a little with my second wide receiver spot because he's questionable now with a back. Des Bryant. I don't know what to expect with him being covered by Josh Norman, especially if he's hurt. But at the same time, if you see what he did the first meeting against the Redskins, and he's really hot right now. I feel comfortable with him.
So hot right now.
Given who his competition is. Remember, he doesn't have too many guys that he has to compete with this week. So I like that fit.
Okay. I follow.
Third spot, you could go with, I really like Pierre Garçon and or Adam Thielen. Again, it's just a matter of fitting in that spot that you're looking for. And I would probably go with Adam Thielen because maybe we're now working on that stack that we seek.
Yeah, I think so. I think that if you're going to make room for Bradford or use Bradford to make room for the Browns and the Bells, I think you almost have to play Adam Thielen. His value is there. There's a good possibility he might get you 65 and a touchdown.
I agree. And you have to realize this is when the stacks really come into play, when we have these small games, because it's obvious you can't pick. You don't have these large pools to pick from. So if your quarterback is going off, there's very few people who are going to be able to beat him if he's hit these other two guys. So
that's right. And that said, I know you're referring to a guy like Stephon Diggs, who I think is a freaking hell of a wide receiver. I really do. But he is banged up. And banged up spells trouble.
Questionable. He didn't practice. So that tells me that much better for Thielen. That's the reason why. Because trust me, Stephon Diggs would be over Thielen if he was healthy, but he's not. I don't need to
That's right. Right. That's right. And I got to tell you that last week he came into that game against Arizona pretty gimpy. It's a good pass defense in Arizona without question, but 7 targets, 6 yards, 6 receptions for 37 yards. That tells me everything was underneath, everything was short. He couldn't get downfield.
No. So right then and there, and that's a good point, by the way. Right then and there, that tells me that he's the way to go. And plus, this lineup that we're fitting in, we probably wouldn't be able to afford Diggs. To be honest with you.
I don't think so.
Because I like Kyle Rudolph now in my tight end spot for the money. And when we fit, I don't even need to explain it to you. Detroit is pretty bad against the tight end.
They are, and this is your Bradford stack all day.
Yeah, they're second worst for points given up to the tight end. So if it's going to hit, he's got to have a good game. Thielen's got to have a good game, or Bradford's not going to get even points enough to win. So it makes sense. Plus, it monetarily it fits perfectly because then I have Prater at my kicker, and so then I only have one other choice if I needed to go ahead and cover all my angles with my kicker. So what I'm advising now is if you have the money, start a Kai Forbarth with another lineup and a Matt Prater. I know it's hard to start identical lineups and just change something as
but
small.
But that something could be a 25-point difference.
It really could, or it could be one guy gets 4 touchdowns and 4 extra points, so 4 points versus 15. And in this scenario, the difference between 10 points will get you from winning $1,000 to $100.
Yeah, it could be a huge difference.
Nothing else is like you don't go through that on the other days, So
sure.
Really
that's why we can't stress enough that if you're going to play and you're going to try to pop some kind of take, dump your bankroll tomorrow. I'll never advise anybody to piss all their money away, but if you do this and you play, if you do it and you're listening, you obviously do this. Tomorrow's the day to do it. This is this opportunity. Up until playoff time, this is your shot.
You've broken down the numbers so much, you only have, I'm not trying to be a statistician or anything, but instead of 32 choices at quarterback, you have 6.
Yeah.
You have.
It makes sense.
So how can you go wrong with that? And with these teams, too, you only have – none of these are the dual-threat running back teams. Dual threats where they've split up the timeshares.
No, and you're right. That's a good point. I didn't even recognize that, but you do not have any committees.
So this basically leaves you with the easiest choices and plus with the matchups and who they are, you have the easiest choices at your running back. You pretty much, assuming everyone's healthy, have the easiest choices at wide receiver. You now just have to fit the combination, and the combination only comes from 16. So that's why I love that.
And I like this combo that we put together here. Let me ask you the last play on this team for the Bradford stack. You have 2 choices in defense, in my eyes. It's either Dallas or Pittsburgh.
See, I'm going with I'm a little different. I think Minnesota is going to do some damage.
You can't afford Minnesota with that lineup.
Oh, yeah.